Okay, so I think we can slowly start now. Welcome everybody to this afternoon session. So it's the final session of the Frankfurt Bootcamp, and we are very happy to have Valeria Hoffmann from Dentons here with us today. So this session will be structured in 3 parts. So first of all, Valeria will give us a short overview of the study they conducted for the block pool project about the European member state specific regulations in the block pool and DLT sector. And then you will have the opportunity to ask in the group some questions to Valeria. And after that, we will split the whole group into 3 smaller groups. So we will have, and it would be great if you could now open up the participant window as we did it yesterday with Pierre. And we will assign you to groups, and everyone who wants to be in the first group, which will be the finance, insurance and governance group, puts a green OK thing next to his name. Everyone who wants to be in the second group, which covers the sectors energy, industry, logistics and manufacturing, puts the red thing next to his or her name. And the third group, social good, retail and consumer, puts a, I don't know what else do we have, so the thumbs up icon next to his name. So it would be great if you could all open the participant window and then click to the button. So either the yes for the group 1, finance, insurance and governance, no for group 2, energy, industry, logistics and manufacturing, and thumbs up, it's on the more thing for the third group, social good and retail. And then we will do the group assignment during Valeria's presentation. And if you don't click anything, we will just assign you to one group. Okay, then, yeah, I'm happy to hand over to Valeria. And looking forward to her presentation.
Thank you very much, Connie. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. So regarding the presentation, I would rather like to have it more on a discussion level afterwards than presenting for half an hour a study which covered 28 jurisdictions plus 3 others, because you can imagine we have a lot of data which we gathered together, and it may become a little bit boring. I think all of you received the study, and I know it is a lot of pages, but frankly speaking, in the end you have a table, and if you want to look up certain details on your own, you can do it. So I would like to structure it in the way that I explain to you what we did, yes, so what is this study actually about, and to go with you through certain significant responses we received from the jurisdictions, which may not contain interesting information as such, so rather some questions have been answered that we don't have any position on this one, or we don't have any regulation on this one. But these questions or these answers provide far more insight on the status quo and situation about the regulation of DLT and blockchain. So we have been asked to provide an analysis of the EU legal framework regarding policies, acts, regulations, laws, standards, maybe statements from the authorities on the European level, as well as on the level of the respective national jurisdictions. And we've been asked to pick some third countries which may be relevant for the development of DLT and blockchain, and to also include them into the study. Also, we have been asked to look at certain areas where blockchain and distributed ledger can be used. And these areas, I will come later to it. Don't worry, I have a presentation. This areas also covered such topics like interoperability, reliability of blockchain, and accountability. However, you will see that we didn't really touched upon these topics simply because, and this is important to understand because before we go into it, this is a study from our perspective as a law firm, which only covers the legal framework. So we didn't look at any kind of academic researches, any kind of potential statements, opinions in the market, in the industry. So our task was really to see, is there a clear regulatory legal guideline on this one? Is there a need for such a legal guideline? And or maybe a planned regulation on this one. And so in situations or areas where we couldn't say anything about it just because the question is still open for the even for those who use blockchain and DLT, it is open, so the regulator doesn't even touch upon this one. We couldn't gather any information about it. So coming to the structure of the project. Analysis regarding the existing legal framework in all EU member states and the UK. So why I stopped right now, because previously I had all 28 EU member states everywhere in the documents, and now I have considering Brexit, we have 27 plus 1, Singapore, US, and Hong Kong. So we covered existing legal framework. So we asked our colleagues to look whether there is any existing regulation, act, or something similar, which explicitly covers blockchain and DLT. It is crucial to understand, we didn't ask them to name us all the laws which can touch upon blockchain and DLT just because the process or the transaction which is regulated can also be undertaken or set up via blockchain and distributed ledger. Because in this case, we would have covered like maybe 60–70% of the existing regulations in these countries. So our question was, do you have legal framework which specifically points out, well, we want to regulate something which is happening on blockchain, on DLT explicitly? We asked for governmental use cases of blockchain and DLT. So we asked, look guys, is your government actively using blockchain for any purposes? Planned legal framework, regulatory limitations, which means that we asked, do you maybe have laws which are explicitly limiting the use of blockchain? So explicitly preventing someone from the use of blockchain or DLT for a specific transaction or process. And legislative gaps and regulatory needs. So we also asked, maybe you don't have any regulations, also no limitations, no planned legal framework. But this is the problem for the blockchain and distributed ledger development in your country, because people would like to use or to set up their processes or their transactions or whatever on blockchain and DLT, but they are simply afraid because they cannot foresee the consequences. And this legislative gap or this regulatory need is the actually obstacle for the for blockchain and DLT and the implementation. So then we concentrated, because we couldn't ask these questions too broad. We had to give our colleagues, and to be fair, we had to give them specific questions and specific areas to look at. So we choose capital markets and anti-money laundering in the first place. Although we knew that the focus of the study initially was not on the financial industry. But I will come later to the point. So we didn't put it in the beginning in the first place. At the beginning, when we asked the questions, capital markets and AML was rather one of the last questions we asked. But when evaluating the responses from the colleagues, we realized that we don't have any other chance than putting it first in our consolidated result. Intellectual property, this was explicitly asked for by the European Commission. Property law and registries, this was not specifically asked for, but again, this point was something which was identified as an important point or important question when looking at the results at the income, let's say so. Data protection was explicitly asked for, and we told them that they have to identify the laws and regulations specifically addressing DLT blockchain applications and solutions. Not just laws and regulations that address a certain process, transaction, or action which can be set up by DLT. So this was one of the specific wording of the requests we sent out. And just for the sake of completeness, regulatory limitations, the same, gaps in needs, just as I explained. So this was the question we posed, we asked the client, the colleagues to answer. We told them that the focus should not be on the financial industry. But, and this is what I already touched upon. The main result was that the financial sector is the most developed with regard to DLT blockchain from the legal perspective. I'm not talking about the practical use of blockchain in DLT. There we have logistics, we have already data sharing, we have a lot of transactions via blockchain. But from the regulatory perspective, the main area where the regulators really dared to go there and to put some specific regulations for crypto assets and DLT-based financial instruments in place was the financial industry. Also, there was a significant insecurity which arises with regard to protection of personal data on DLT blockchain. So this was one of the outcome of the study, which we received in the end. And we have been asked also by the EU Commission about the interoperability and algorithmic accountability and reliability of DLT blockchain. Sorry, too many abilities. We don't have a comprehensive information about it right now. So there is, from a legal perspective, everyone says that we need, there is a general need of technological harmonization. And we have a lot of technical solutions to make blockchains being capable of interacting with each other. And let me phrase it this way, from the financial perspective, to make a token swap, yes, to transfer one kind of token or coin to another blockchain. But there is no legal, no legal regulation, no planned regulation. It was simply not important from a legal perspective yet. Same regarding the other point. Despite that there is a question about the GDPR, so about data protection, and the question about who can be held accountable for personal data on blockchain. And only in this particular area we have something which can come close to regulatory statement. We have some statements from the French regulatory authority which deals with this question. But also at the point of when we finished the study so far, there was no other really clear guideline statement act whatsoever dealing with the accountability of blockchain or DLT. Now shortly going into the specific topics. One of the outcomes was regarding capital markets and anti-money laundering that they say there is an existing legal framework in connection with the implementation of the anti-money laundering directive. So this is clear. The anti-money laundering directive asked the member states to regulate crypto assets, and the member states did so. So specifically addressing crypto assets, crypto custody, we have all of this. We also had several statements and communications, warnings, let's say, so from the financial supervisory authorities regarding to DLT-based financial instruments. Most of you maybe know it when we had this ICO hype, slowly turning into the security token offering hype. A lot of authorities didn't know how to deal with this because they were not, so that they couldn't decide upon, is all of this covered by the existing legal framework? Do we have a new technology but the same transaction or the same process, or do we have a new process which requires a new legal framework? And all of these led to the fact that we had like several warnings from all over the world, warning the consumers in particular from buying crypto assets and coins and whatsoever. Now, so when we finished the study, it was not yet there, but right now for like maybe 2 weeks, we have a first draft for regulating electronic securities in Germany. This act or draft act is not yet ready. I really hope, or I expect it, but I also hope it will be redrafted a couple of times. But why is it important here? Electronic security is nothing new. Germany calls it electronic securities because they want to be neutral for from the technology perspective. But frankly speaking, this act is about regulating DLT-based assets, DLT-based securities, and introducing so-called crypto registers, so registers for securities running on DLT. And this is maybe the first act in Europe which is clearly addressing DLT-based transactions and processes, not only in the context of one directive, or not only in the context of like financial instruments, like banking and finance, and the crypto regulation being just one part of it, but this is a whole act only designed to respond to the innovation of technology and to regulate crypto-based transactions, crypto-based assets with securities. One of the problems is that several EU member states claim that the anti-money laundering directive was not yet properly implemented. So they didn't even have the crypto regulation so far. And this was part of the planned legal framework. So a lot of countries stated that we have planned legal framework for DLT and blockchain in the area of capital markets. But this is nothing else than the late or not yet sufficiently finalized implementation of the anti-money laundering directive. So for the IP, this was the standard answer. No specific legal framework. Property law and registries, this was the standard answer. Yeah, it was just like copy-paste for all the countries, including Singapore, including Hong Kong, including US. Only France said that they have that they use DLT for the registration of so-called mini bonds, and that they use blockchain solutions for representation and transfer of securities. But you see again, this question, property law and registries, was openly phrased. So we were not in the capital markets area anymore. This could be everything: a notarization of documents, commercial registers, any kind of property, real estate. But no, the answers we received, which came close to any kind of legal framework and regulations, shifted again shifted towards capital markets and financial industry. Germany, again, this draft act had to include it for the sake of completeness. Data protection, no specific legal framework, except for the French Commission Nationale de l'Informatique et de la Liberté, also the French Data Protection Supervision Authority, which published their statement regarding the treatment of blockchain and in connection with the processing of personal data, which is so far, frankly speaking, one of the best things I read so far. I know that there also has been a study from the European Commission, on a European level, and this was also pretty good. But after this publication, I actually expected that other supervisory authorities will come up with something similar. So exactly the same like it was in the financial industry, that after the Swiss authority dared to issue a statement about the treatment of crypto assets, the German authority followed like 2 weeks later, and you could see upon the statements that they both communicated with each other and that they both aligned their statements. And then all the other European authorities started rendering their statements regarding the treatment of DLT and blockchain in the financial sphere based on this already issued statements. And here we were hoping for the same effect. So look, the French supervision came up with something. How about you guys also giving some input on this one to bring the understanding and the use of blockchain and DLT regarding storage of personal data, processing of personal data on blockchain forward? Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Governmental use cases. This is interesting. I didn't want to put all herein which we had. So this is mere, this is more or less a choice of significant and interesting responses. You see here the countries which said that either they implemented something already, so their government is using blockchain DLT for certain processes. It is Austria, Netherlands, and Estonia. All the others said, not yet, we're not yet using it, but there are discussions, considerations, projects, research projects, and the government is on hold there. So they are about to consider to implement, they have it in mind. What were the most or the answers we received the most regarding what kind of use cases you have? Commercial land and title registries, certificates, diplomas, documents verification for the universities, issuance, distribution of securities. This is of course nothing new. Information sharing, and this is interesting, including sensitive private information in the health sector. Given the fact that from the regulatory perspective, I know that there are a lot of solutions and answers to the processing of personal data on blockchain from the academic and from the technical perspective. But we need an answer from the authorities. We need some authority to sit down and to clearly state, you may do this, you may do this, you're not allowed to do this. This is a use case we can live with. Otherwise, you won't have any legal security. Otherwise, you can argue that this is okay and compliant with the GDPR, but it's still there is still a residual risk that it's not. So this is interesting that some governments are already considering using in processing sensitive private information in the health sector on blockchain and DLT, and the authorities remain more or less silent. Banking activities, notarization, management of personal data, personal identification, traceability of products. Again, I know that Daimler and all of them, they trace their products and they trace their medical supplies already for a couple of years. But here we're talking about the governmental use cases. Transfer of trademark ownership, insurance, consumer protection. It's not all of them, but this we're repeating for several countries, different wording, almost the same content. Limitations, gaps, and needs. I just picked 3 quotes. They're a little bit longer. I won't read them, I just shortly explain. But these 3 quotes are more or less representative for what was the general consent about what is the problem right now from a legal status quo of blockchain and DLT. So we have no limitations. There is a need to implement clear rules in the capital markets industry regarding the various categories of blockchain-based assets. So blockchain here, it is the original wording from the colleague. We just took it as it is. Of course, blockchain DLT-based assets. So from the financial markets perspective, some countries do have it, and for some countries it is easy to operate in this area. This is, for example, for me, being a capital markets lawyer in Germany nowadays and advising in crypto or DLT-based assets is quite okay, because finally you have a certain kind of security. But there are a lot of countries also within the EU where the colleagues are not that lucky. Also capital markets, and you see again we have a very shifted weight to capital markets and financial industry. Clarification how the existing legal framework will apply to DLT blockchain. Again, from a German perspective, maybe also from French perspective, it is not an issue anymore. And for me, when I read it, I'm like, what do you mean? We have an existing legal framework, but others don't. Again, here need to implement legal framework regarding virtual currencies. This was this answer we already received in March or April. So and right now we are closely to have a first draft on the legal framework regarding virtual currencies from the EU perspective. So this is quite interesting. More detailed classification of the different technology solutions are necessary. Again, capital markets. I'm sorry for this, but this was really like, it was not just these 5 answers, but almost every jurisdiction stated this. We need something for capital markets. We need to have a better consumer protection for capital markets, and so on. We had also something for the IP, that they were saying we have no specific regulation regarding the IP treatment of smart contracts. And even if this is governed by the existing legal framework, as it is the case with financial instruments on DLT, please clarify it. Yes, so not you, not the academic participants, but the authorities. Please tell us the existing IP rules apply the same way or accordingly to smart contracts and other specifics on DLT blockchain. Again, property law. And this is also interesting in Germany because this is more or less clear for us right now, or it is clear where the German legislator aims to go regarding how to classify DLT-based assets, not only financial instruments, whether it is property or other property rights, whether it's a right or really like something that you can acquire via certain mechanisms. So can you acquire a token like you acquire a house, or can you acquire a token like you acquire a claim? Yes, to put it really simple from a legal perspective. And this is not yet, it was not clear for Germany, it is still not clear for a lot of other countries. And data protection. Yes, so this was also one of the most important questions. Interesting, especially important for Singapore. So they really, this is a quote from Singapore, they really pointed out that they have a huge problem with the correlation of blockchain DLT and data protection. Well, this was fast, and I think I hope you're not that bored right now. And now I'm very happy for questions and discussion.
So thank you very much for this super interesting presentation. I didn't find it boring. So yeah, now you all are invited to ask questions. You can maybe also unmute yourself.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is, because I'm an academic teacher, I'm like teaching students of new technologies, and I'm wondering if it's somehow, if we can say, like legal to teach this technology at the universities.
Sure, I wouldn't know why not. I mean, it depends on what you're teaching the people to do. I mean, if you're teaching illegal transactions on blockchain DLT,
no, it's just from the perspective that you said that some areas of this field are not really clear about their legal status. So, I mean, is it like, because this is like from the perspective of future of students and so on, it's good to teach them technology. So this I understand, but I am just trying to understand if we can like cover all areas, I mean, without these things that already we know that are illegal. What do you think about this?
I think you can teach everything about it. I think that every act in the end, so let me phrase it this way. The most legal framework in Europe is or wants to be neutral to new technologies. And this is what we have to see or to understand from my perspective. Any of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. For me, DLT and blockchain is not something, it's not a new process or a new action. It is a new technology. And existing transactions, existing actions can be, or some of them, can be undertaken via blockchain and DLT. So, of course, you can teach the new technology. The problem for let's say my client is not, it is more the difficulty. Most of the processes they had before, they can put it on blockchain and DLT, and this would be valid. But the problem is they have to explain it to the regulator, because the regulator is not 21 and did not study, for example, was not within your students. The regulator is a person usually between maybe 35 if we are lucky, but rather 40 to 50, and they just start to understand what is blockchain. So when we first come to them and we say, well, we want to put personal data on blockchain, and they read in the newspaper that you cannot delete personal data, or you cannot delete anything you ever put on blockchain, which is of course not that correct. But this is what they read, and the first thing they say is no. So when my client or your student wants to set up a new company, a startup for data management, you of course can teach this person how to do it. You can easily say, well, this is how you have to program it, this is how you have to structure it. But when your student is going in the market and really starts the new company, they will need to analyze and they will need to look at the legal requirements. And maybe at this point of time, it will be more difficult for them to set up this new startup or corporation. But it doesn't mean that what you taught them is illegal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello, Valeria. Quick question.
Hi.
So first of all, thank you for your presentation. It was interesting. Our company is incorporated in the Netherlands, and I was wondering if your study goes into the specifics of custodial solutions, and non-custodial software wallets, for example. Is it so specific, or is this an area that you didn't explore?
The study doesn't go in this specific area because this would be covered by capital markets. So I assume you're talking about crypto custody.
Yes.
Custody of coins, custody of tokens, and so ever. So this is covered by the capital markets, and there the question is quite clear. So this is one of the best regulated areas in the DLT context, because crypto custody is regulated or should be regulated all over Europe. Whether it is even regulated in this way that you can assess whether the assets, the DLT assets you have in your custody, are subject to this regulation, or maybe not yet, because some of the crypto assets are not yet regulated. Because they do not qualify as financial instruments from the capital markets perspective. But this is too specific. It would have been if we would have gone into this specific details, the study would still go on, because then you have a lot of individual questions regarding every area. But finalizing the answer. Exactly this point is really good to answer, and you can ask any lawyer who is capable of advising you regarding DLT and blockchain sphere. They will know the requirements for crypto custody, the permission requirements, and whether you have to file for a permission with your supervision authority, or whether your custody business is outside of the scope, and therefore you can just go on without any supervision.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Christophe Tavernier. I have a question on your slide related to the slide on the different countries in Europe that you were interested. Yes, this one, governmental use case, especially. You did not include Lithuania.
No. Just let me look at the actual.
There is Estonia, Slovakia, but I cannot see Lithuania.
Probably because we were not reported any existing or intended governmental use cases, but I'm happy to learn something new. So what is going on in Lithuania?
Because from my understanding, there is a kind of competition between member states in order to produce the most open regulation as regard of to attract blockchain entrepreneurs and investors. And I knew that Lithuania, they have some incentive, and the regulation is more easy to experiment new business model, new projects. And from my understanding, so my question is that, is there different group of countries, different group of member states in Europe, those who are really open, could be Estonia, Lithuania, etc., and other groups which can be maybe more traditional or more slow in the openness of the market. Do you have this kind of did you have this remark when you do your study?
No, you can surely draw this conclusion from the study itself, because you can see which countries implemented something and implemented a lot, and which countries implemented nothing. So we didn't focus on this one because, frankly speaking, and I'm sorry for this very like a protective answer, but it's not meant like this, but it was not the actual question. we were asked to provide an overview over the existing or planned regulation, but not to undertake the analysis. So the analysis as such about what is the best solution, which country does the best work on this one, this is rather now the job of the European Commission when considering whether to implement a framework, whether to reflect something or not. As for this slide, just to make it clear, these are only governmental use cases. So these are only situations where a state, so the German or the Austrian state, I'm sorry for this, come to use blockchain and DLT themselves for administrative tasks. And for Lithuania, just checked again, we had the answer from the colleagues that currently Lithuania does not use blockchain solutions or DLT for its administrative tasks, which doesn't mean they don't have a regulation or they don't plan a regulation or are not open. I think, and this is more, so we noticed that more to the south of Europe, the understanding of blockchain and DLT and the let's say readiness of the government to understand what it is and to implement blockchain and to be open to it goes a little bit more down. And it goes, so for example, Germany, France, also Luxembourg, Belgium are extremely open. Also, Lithuania and Slovakia, they are also open, but in a little bit another way. So they don't really want to regulate. They just let people grow. From my, and this is only my personal overview or consideration, I think Germany and France and Belgium and Luxembourg, they are open, but they want it to be regulated. So they want to have a clear framework to protect those who should be protected, but they don't want to kill the innovation with this legal framework. While I think Lithuania and Latvia, they allow it, but they just watch. Yes, I'm not saying they don't care, but they just, yes, they implement, they enjoy the research process, but from what we received as a feedback, it is not yet that there is no such aim to regulate anything. Other than in Germany and for example in France, where the German government, for example, they even issue. Yes,
when you are talking about south of Europe, do you include also Malta and Cyprus?
Malta is amazing. No, Malta is very good. I'm talking rather about Spain, Italy, Portugal, this kind of, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi. I have a question, but first I want to put it in the context of my own personal experience with this. We have been in contact with a regulator in Luxembourg since more than 1 year because we're running a crypto-related business, and we also wanted to apply for payment institution license. And we recently received from them a request also to apply for supervision as a crypto business. So they introduced, after the FATF guidance, which I think was published somewhere last summer in July. It was a guidance about crypto assets in general. And I think they somehow took this guidance as applicable in their regulation, because they ask us to, they publish some forms that you have to fill in and to request to be supervised. And it seems to be a bit similar with what was existing in Estonia since years already. I mean, at least 2 or 3 years from now, Estonia invented these licenses between codes for wallet and for exchange. And it was interesting because when first we decided, okay, this is completely useless because nobody else than Estonia really recognized them internationally. So everybody said, yeah, good, but we don't trust Estonia with this. So it was valid only there. And when we decided, okay, this is still interesting to have it and we wanted to apply, they changed the rules and they said you cannot apply unless your company is in Estonia, because before you could apply even if you are not in Estonia. And now the questions come, if I would have such a license between codes, it's not a license, you are just registered with your local regulator as being an entity which is supervised. Yeah, so it's not a license, but it's still, you are registered officially with a number and you are supervised. So it's something in between, but I don't want to say it's a license. Is this passportable? I mean, is this, if I have this license in Luxembourg, yeah? It's something that, for instance, Germany will say, good, if you have this license in Luxembourg, you're good to have customers in Germany, and we believe that you are well supervised, and you don't have to apply with the same forms to be supervised also in Germany, and so on and so forth. No? So the question is, okay, how is there any understanding on the European level? Is there any golden standard about how companies like this are supervised, or it's just let's say touch agreement or something like this?
I have the perfect short answer for you, like every lawyer. It depends. No, seriously, it depends on the license you have. Right now, I just cannot assess what license we're talking about, so I just reply in general. You have a certain directive on a European level. It is called MiFID II. I won't bother you with what it is, but this directive, frankly speaking, sets out some obligation to the member states to regulate certain financial services. So MiFID II says, well, member states, for the following services, financial services, A, B, C, D, you please ensure that in your country, the people or entities, persons, legal persons who provide these services require a license. And so this is harmonized. And if your license with the Luxembourg authority falls under this list of licenses pursuant to MiFID II, you can passport them. An easy example is for Germany, or let's not only for Germany, but you render a financial service, for example, let me say brokerage, yes, and brokerage is bound to the term of financial instruments. So it said, if you do this and this with the financial instruments, then you are a broker, and a broker requires a license under the German law. And if you receive this license in Germany, you can passport it to Luxembourg, you can passport it to France, and vice versa. So Germany said on the national level that financial instruments based on DLT, so for example, shares which are tokenized, or investment assets which are tokenized, that these DLT-based assets are also financial instruments under the German law. And everybody who is a broker for such DLT-based financial instruments automatically has to apply for a brokerage license. But it is not a specific brokerage license for crypto assets. It is a brokerage license under this MiFID II. And if you obtain it, you can passport it. So if this is the same for your license, if it's not a specific Luxembourg national invented, let me phrase so, license, but it is an official license under the MiFID II regime, then you can passport it. Mm-hmm. If it's not, if Luxembourg said, look, we understand it's a new technology, we don't want to kill it, we understand it is very expensive for a startup or a fintech to obtain this MiFID II licenses because they're extremely expensive to obtain everywhere. We make a supervision light on a national level. And if this is the case, then such permissions are not passportable yet, because we don't have a harmonization regime so far for crypto asset licenses if individual states decided to implement some requirements. So basically, the advice is let someone check your license, understand or tell you whether this is a MiFID II license and therefore passportable, or whether this is some kind of special Luxembourg-style license, which is unfortunately not passportable. And then what you have to do is you have to approach a German lawyer, or whichever country you want to go. If you want to Germany, a German lawyer, and tell them, look, this is the service I'm doing. So you're not coming with your license anymore. You are telling me, for example, look, my service is, I'm doing this, 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 and that. And I will tell you, okay, this service is subject to a license requirement in Germany. Or I will tell you, congratulations, this service is not yet regulated by the German authorities. So you just can go on in Germany without any regulation. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, in our case, so if I interpret your answer, in our case, it's not. I'm familiar with MiFID. I'm familiar with PSD2 and so on, because I almost prepared the complete file for a payment institution, and it's not. So definitely, it's not a MiFID type of license. It's not a PSD2 type of license. And it's something that, and I posted in the Zoom group chat. It's based on this FATF publication, which was more or less agreed by a lot of countries, not only in Europe. So it's a general guidance. And Luxembourg, and I think also other countries, I think Switzerland, Malta, other countries also took this guidance and somehow was implemented by their regulators. I also posted above also the link from the regulator, which explains exactly what's the process and of this registration as a virtual asset provider, service provider. But it's definitely not some kind of PSD2 or, so it means that actually, even if it follows this international guidance, which maybe it's also implemented the same way in Germany, there is no formal agreement between Germany and Luxembourg. So I would have to, either Germany has nothing against it, and if they don't have a law yet, I can just use it. And if they have a law, probably I have to apply also in Germany, or
yes. Yes, because in international guidance, I'm frankly speaking, I didn't see it, so I would have to look at. But if it's an international guidance, it cannot regulate national financial industry. So because the national finance laws are subject to national legislation, the European Union can make a directive in this regard to ask for harmonization, or in some cases they can do it via regulation, like for the prospectus, etc. But it cannot be a certain international guidance. So the German legislator might have implemented it into the national laws with a certain kind of license light or whatsoever, but again, I'm talking right now a little bit like in the black box, because I would need to see the guideline. Yes, sorry for this, but if it's not, so for my personal, if it's not MiFID II, if it's not harmonized on the European level by a regulation, by directive, it's not passportable, and you need to we still have like forum shopping, and you need to comply, or to let your services be assessed in every country individually.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have further questions?
Okay, may I add one last question, please?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, thank you, Valeria, again for the presentation. My question is again falling in the realm of custody. So specifically cross-border custody. So in some cases we are offering basically STOs, or what could be classified as STOs, let's say to German clients for a project whose assets are, or productive assets live in Spain, for example. So, you know, we would love to give the custody straight to the German clients, of course, but unfortunately, the technology, the user experience and whatnot is not there yet. So as I would say, first step, what we do is we hold the custody in Spain for now, for German clients, while we can actually.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you anymore. Sorry?
Oh, sorry. I'm breaking here.
I'm sorry, I completely lost your connection after you said that that you have the custody in Spain for the German clients.
Right. So sorry about unstable. Question is, do you find any contingencies with regard to holding the custody?
I'm sorry, I
for
really
other state member clients.
I'm sorry, I really couldn't understand your question, because from the point where you said that you have the custody for in Spain for German customers, I totally lost your sound.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll write it down. I think it will be best.
I'm sorry, it just really interrupted every time.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I'll write it.
So, Connie, I think we don't have any questions for now, or?
I think we will wait until he wrote the question. Does in the meantime anyone else want to ask something or provide a comment?
Yes, Christophe again. So I have a question. So about still the same slide, governmental use case. So from my understanding, your study focus on GovTech. In fact, what we call GovTech, because we have there was a meeting in Paris last year. GovTech mean government technology. Is it the focus on your study?
Not only. So the focus of the study is to look at the existing and planned legal framework explicitly for blockchain and DLT, at the governmental use cases explicitly for blockchain and DLT, and any gaps and regulatory needs in this context. So all of this is covered, and one of the points is, of course, governmental use cases. If GovTech in France, I have the input from my French colleagues, but I'm not a French lawyer. So if this covers governmental use cases or planned legal framework for blockchain and DLT in France, then yes, the colleague covered it too and included it in their response.
And how do you choose the list of your country? Because why don't you choose China or Canada? Because those two countries also are maybe they have use case.
We were asked for all EU member states. So this was the requirement. We had to look at the EU member states because the EU Commission wants to have a legal status quo for Europe to understand whether they need to implement a European framework to some extent. And then they asked us to pick up 2 to 3 additional third countries. And we decided to go with Singapore, the US, and Hong Kong, just because for the development of blockchain and DLT in these jurisdictions, but also the global importance of these economies. So from the context of global importance of the economies. And you're totally correct. We could have chosen China, we could have chosen Canada, but to some extent we had to limit the scope of the research. And
the same
so,
also, you did not have any African country in your list?
No. Because we just again we had the Europe, and
because
then
maybe in the coming years they would have more and more digitalized transaction between Europe and Africa, and it's strange that you do not have opportunity to study at least one African country.
This may be the next step.
Okay, maybe. Okay, no more question. Thank you.
So in the meanwhile, Luz wrote his question. Can you read the chat, Valeria, or do you want me to?
If you could read it, this would be awesome.
So the question is if there is any relevant legal framework for cross-border custody. So for example, if a Swiss-issued STO is sold to a German investor that invests in a Spanish-based asset represented by the aforementioned tokens, or is there any legal framework for this?
Yes, so generally saying, the crypto custody was included into the anti-money laundering directive as the financial service which needed to be regulated by the member states, and now crypto custody is one of the financial services which requires a license in every member state which implemented the directive, and they all have to, but as I pointed out, some of them just failed to do it yet, but they are on their way. And yes, you can then apply for a crypto custody license in your home-based jurisdiction, and then you can passport this permission or this license to any other EU member state, and thereby offer this service also in this other EU member state.
Thank you. But I assume we then have the same problem that this falls under MiFID II and is extremely expensive. So there is no easier way to do it.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
But if you offer crypto custody in the EU, you will have to obtain the license anyway. So this is not so it's you won't be able to offer crypto custody in terms of the anti-money laundering directive anymore in a couple of months without this permission, this license. So, and then you can passport it, or either you stop your business. Also, just not trying to be cruel, but this is the legal situation, unfortunately.
Okay, so thank you very much. I have maybe a last question or open comment, I don't know, or opinion thing. So all these discussions, this reminds me a little bit when we look to the crowdfunding industry. So you know the crowdfunding industry also very well. So I see a lot of parallels. So crowdfunding platforms also had this problem that they were based in one country and they wanted to have investors or startups from another country, and that they had to passport a license, and this was very expensive. So now we achieved this European crowdfunding service provider regulation, which will come into force soon, which I think is a great step from the European Commission to launch such a regulation. But we could observe, so there would also, with crowdfunding, these two approaches, that one member state said, okay, we will just observe, others said, okay, we will regulate. And then the problem was that when harmonizing everything, you have some very strict regulations which make it very hard to harmonize it or to find a common ground. So what is so if you could provide a recommendation to the Commission today, what would you recommend the member states to do? So should everyone come up with their own regulation, or should Europe soon agree on a harmonized basis of rules which can be then be interpreted by the individual member states? Or what do you think would be a smart way in this complex topics?
I think before regulating something, firstly speaking, if you regulate something, this should be, at least for Europe, done on a harmonized basis. Otherwise, we have the same problems as we had every time before. People will have to obtain up to 27 licenses in every country. We even see right now the problem, whoever of you is working a little bit with securities and prospectus, even the harmonization of the prospectus requirements, by leaving it up to the member states to define whether the prospectus is required up to 8 million or whatever. Even this makes or creates a lot of trouble for the issuers. So the harmonization, even if there is a harmonization, it is really difficult if there are any deviations. But for the first moment, we should identify where we really need a regulation. So from my perspective, we need it for the capital markets area. It is absolutely clear. But here we have an existing legal framework. We just have to clearly define, we have really to analyze what kind of financial capital markets relevant services and businesses are there. And we have to really tell the people, well, what you're doing is part of the financial industry. It is part of the capital markets laws and regulations, and they are all applicable to you. So this shouldn't be that problematic. The problem right now is that we are harmonized by MiFID II. MiFID II goes or starts from the term of financial instruments, and crypto assets or DLT-based assets are not yet defined on a European level as these financial instruments. So you can interpret them, you can interpret financial instruments including DLT-based assets or not. And there is an insecurity. And then you have states like Germany. I'm sorry, coming to Germany every time again, but I'm a German lawyer, so guilty. So Germany at some point of time just said, well, in German national terms, DLT-based financial assets are financial instruments. But it doesn't apply to MiFID II because Germany cannot regulate MiFID II terminology. And then we had a really creepy situation that you had to, as a German issuer, you had to apply for your crypto business for license in Germany, but you couldn't passport this license to any other EU jurisdiction because you were not sure whether this is also financial instrument in Luxembourg. So yes, cutting it short, we need a regulation where, and we need a harmonized regulation where there is a need for regulation. So the member states should stop rendering regulations individually, like for every kind of for any area or for every problem, but they should communicate more and find an agreement on whether there is a need or there is, or we still can have some time to look, to analyze, and to decide whether they're regulating or not.
Okay, thank you so much. So it seems that it remains complicated for the next few months, but yeah, maybe it goes quick. So thank you very much, Valeria. I think it was a
sorry, sorry, I just interrupted you. Is there any non-for-profit association which promotes best practices in DLT blockchain processes and transactions?
I think you could have a look at the Blockchain Observatory or INATBA if they have recent reports. Otherwise, I think the one Dentons conducted is currently, yeah, as far as I know, the latest and yeah, which covers all the countries. I'm not sure.
Can you repeat?
So if anyone has a hint.
Can you repeat? Blockchain Observatory and what else?
So the European, it's initiated from the European Commission. I didn't have a look at it in the last few weeks, but usually they have some reports there. It's the European Blockchain Observatory and INATBA. This is the Blockchain Industry Association.
Can you write down for me in the chat the name of the second one?
Write it down.
Okay, thank you. Inadba. Okay, thank you very much.
So we had also planned a short breakout session. So the idea is that with this input and with this problems, challenges, or maybe solutions, all of you and we are struggling when it comes to regulatory aspects. We thought that we split you up in 3 groups. Maybe I will share my screen, then it's easier. So yes, the idea is that we split you up in 3 groups, and each session will be moderated by one block pool member. So group 1 will be Robert together with Valeria. Group 2 will be moderated by Johannes, and group 3 by me. And the idea is that we look at the sectors we have. So ideally, we have managed to allocate the groups a little bit to your sectors so that you have really experiences on these topics. And then we have a few questions. So the first question would be, which use cases benefit most from the implementation of DLT in your sector? Another question would be, do these industries educate themselves about DLT? And if yes, is the education sufficient? So here is basically the questions: do you have, as an SME, enough qualified employees? Do you have enough contact points to get expert knowledge? Is there a possibility to train their own employees, or where are the gaps here? A third question would be, when you look at the specific processes in these use cases, which ones should be set up on DLT first and why? So I don't know, for example, issuance of securities, because it is, or tracking of goods, or data management. So which processes within the use cases are most promising or most developed, and why? And then finally, also the last question is, what are the main obstacles for commercialization on DLT? Yes, so the idea is that Robert will split you up now into 3 breakout sessions, and that you will elaborate these questions in the group and then come up with a short summary, which you then will present to all when we meet again together. And why are we doing this? So maybe to provide a little bit of background. So the block pool project is a project financed by the European Commission. So we got this money to forward to you in order to develop your product and to commercialize them. But the Commission also does this as a pilot project, so they want to learn. So what are problems, what are challenges, what works well, where do we need to support more, where can we regulate something? And this is why we would really ask you for active participation and your experiences you made. And we, the moderators, will note them down and ideally come up with a summary which we can work on further.
Connie, just a short remark. I have to apologize and to correct myself regarding one question which I was asked before. Since I'm not a regulatory lawyer, basically I was asked whether it is possible to passport crypto custody license in Europe, and my answer was yes, and this was unfortunately not correct. So as the crypto custody license is not based on the MiFID II harmonization, but only on the anti-money laundering directive, it is not possible to passport crypto custody licenses within Europe. So just for the sake of correctness.
Okay.
Sorry for interruption, but I wanted to put it clear before everyone breaks out.
Yes, thank you, Valeria, because this is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, we will meet after 15 minutes again in the whole group, and then every group will shortly present their summary, and we will close and conclude the bootcamp. So, Robert?
Enough time, or does anybody need more time?
I think we could discuss still hours, but having in mind the schedule that we have only 10 minutes for closing this, I would suggest that each group moderator or maybe someone else assigned just shortly summarizes the main points, or yeah, and then we close this, and we will have, so this was not the last bootcamp, so we will have 2 other bootcamps, maybe even one day we could meet physical. And I think we can continue our discussions. So group 1, Robert, do you want to start? Or
So I was switching in between rooms, so I'm probably the worst person to start. Valeria just messaged me saying she's a bit incapacitated right now. Should we maybe start with group 2 and 3 and then come back to Valeria?
Okay, group 2, Johannes.
Yeah. We were talking about the energy industry, manufacturing, or logistics sector, and in particular, we were talking about the fishing industry. And yeah, you can hear me, right? Yeah. And the use case was providing private and the public database for the fishing industry, and payments for fishermen to give some information about the temperature on locations for detailed maps on the sea, yeah, for example. And the main problem in this industry is that people equal blockchain to Bitcoin, yeah, and there are a lot of myths about blockchain and especially Bitcoin, and blockchain has to be explained in a better way, yeah. So the main obstacle is education, or some kind of education, and the main obstacle for commercialization is that there is a lack of commercial clients and there are lack of clear examples how to do payments with Bitcoin legally, because in these use cases the informations are paid with Bitcoin. So so there's a lack of experience, and they don't really know if payments with Bitcoins are legal or not. Yeah, and so there's a big need of practice and lower the risks. So yeah, that was the main points from our discussion in group 2.
Okay, thank you. So then maybe I will summarize shortly what we discussed in group 3. So one of the adoption problems is, of course, that the tools are not that usable. Incidentally, we had this SME, our block pool project, in the group that provides a technology for allowing user-friendly blockchain development. So adoption is one aspect. Then we also discussed a lot about barriers such as fear, or the problem that basically an added value of blockchain is that you have trusted information, but many people have a lack of trust in the solution blockchain itself. So this is more or less a lack of education, a little bit, that people do not trust the technology. Then we also discussed a little bit that regulation is mainly not the core problem. It's maybe more the uncertainty of regulation. So it's not a question if something is legal or not legal, but the problem that you never know if it remains like this or if it will change in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. Therefore, it's quite hard to make people invest. So upscaling investments is difficult because you always do not have the certainty that your use case will can continue like this. Then what else do we have? We also had one representative for the manufacturing industry in our group. So here we have more the problem that the manufacturing industry is quite conservative, so there's really a need for education and convincing companies of the added value. And maybe to conclude this summary, so the value, I think all use cases represented in our group agreed on the value that you can create trust. One said it's the Web 3.0, so that you can create trust and transfer information with trust. So this was maybe the main point.
Great, thank you, Connie. So Valeria got dragged into something else. So I do apologize for putting you on the spot here, but Christoph and Vlad, you were pretty active during the discussions, at least when I was there. Would you guys mind quickly summarizing what we discussed or what the group discussed?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Who want to take the floor?
I think you just volunteered.
Okay. Just maybe not the whole, I cannot do the whole summary, but one part. So the first question was, which use case benefit the most from the implementation of DLT in your sector? So we discussed about banking and especially payment. I mean, all the the bank, they could be very interested to be the first maybe a beneficiary of this implementation, because they are currently using SWIFT network, and they have after the euro currency integration, they are moving in the SEPA free transaction with not only in Europe but also some countries also are participating to the SEPA network. But now, because of the digitalization, this is a new opportunity, and for them to go fast in the instant settlement, and banks are leading this implementation, not only in payment but also in digital securities. And also there is also an opportunity for a change or some consolidation or change in the ecosystem of finance, especially maybe the role of clearinghouse. And yes, we can ask this question: is there a future role of the clearinghouse in the DLT and blockchain? So it's why the implementation is very, very crucial, very important for the banking industry. Another sector that I had opportunity also to have a look on is the insurance. AXA was maybe the first insurance global leader to experiment blockchain and to build and to have the will to build an ecosystem, not only to build a new ecosystem with insurance, travel agency, and also the end user. So I mean the customers. But this initiative has started in 2017. But it was not a failure, but it was a little bit of failure at the commercial level. So the adoption, in fact, there is no adoption especially by the travel agency. But for the end user, the traveler, it was very interesting to have in your app, and to have the opportunity to get instantly reimbursed from your travel project or ticket. It was an insurance connected to the delay. So when the plane has a delay, so you were automatically informed, and you can be reimbursed in the same day, and you can choose to be refunded in Euro or in Ethereum. So this ecosystem, in fact, the adoption was a failure. It was that involved insurance, a startup, and also the travel agency. So the difficulties was at the startup level, and also because the startup missed the commercial target, and the travel agency, they don't maybe get used with that, and maybe a lack of training. So this was the issue. The issue was to focus not on the students, not of the young generation, the millennials, but in the current market, to know if they are ready to use to participate, at least to participate to current experimentation led by big banks or central banks or big insurance. And each time,
sorry, Christoph, for interrupting you, but we are running out of time. Thank you very much.
I just want to conclude that we propose to enforce the Small Business Act to encourage the cooperation and between groups and startup to secure and accelerate this adoption. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 minutes left, 1 minute for me concluding the workshop and 1 minute for Robert for concluding the bootcamp. So thank you all very much, especially Valeria. Thank you for providing these insights. We will share the report with you, and I think also the blog pool bootcamp presentations. Thank you very much also for the group discussions. I think I was only one group, but it was very nice and very interesting, and looking forward to see and hopefully meet you at one of our next bootcamps. So bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Connie. I can only echo those words. Big thank you also from us, and I think on behalf of the entire blog pool consortium. It was extremely valuable to us. I hope that you guys also benefited quite a bit from this. There were a lot of questions regarding materials, so we will be uploading those to the website, but truth be told, it probably won't be this week, it will probably be next week. So keep an eye out for the materials on the website. And if you have any feedback for us regarding the bootcamp in terms of content, organization, please do feel free to share it, because obviously we're keen to improve as well. And well, hopefully we can incorporate that feedback for the next bootcamp, and even more hopefully we can see you guys in person next time. Well, obviously that depends on how this entire pandemic is unfolding, so let's wait and see. But yeah, that's basically my 2 cents on this. Also, a big thank you to the mentors who presented this morning. I hope you guys also enjoyed those sessions. Yeah, that's it from my side. I think the only thing that's left is to wish you all a good weekend. It's certainly well deserved.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Robert, and see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, Frankfurt.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.